Hello and welcome to this special episode of Research Goes Viral. My name is Stephen Devlin. I am a PhD researcher here at the CVR. My pronouns are he, him. And today with my two wonderful guests here, we're going to be discussing LGBTQIA plus scientists from the past, our thoughts about scientists from the past and how they relate to LGBTQIA matters, and just having a general roundtable discussion about how the LGBTQIA history, seeing as it is LGBTQIA History Month, impacts on us today. So before we get into that, though, we're just going to go around the table and introduce ourselves. So it'd be great if we could get your name, what you do here, and then pronouns, and maybe a little bit about yourself. Okay. So we'll start with alphabetical order.
Hi, I'm Anna Sims. I'm a PhD student here at the CVR and I work mostly on flu. My pronouns are she, her. I'm just vibing, I guess.
Out here vibing.
Out here vibing on a Thursday afternoon, yeah.
And my favourite question, one fun fact about yourself. You do not have to answer that. that is bullying.
Fun fact. Okay, I'll think about it while Spyros is answering.
Okay, perfect. Oh, well, there we go.
Spoiler.
Spoiler alert.
Hi, everyone. I'm Spyros Lytras. I'm a PhD candidate here at the CVR. I do a lot on evolution of viruses and how things just change through time. My pronouns are he, him, and yeah, I'm also vibing.
We got vibes.
Is that, yeah.
We're vibing.
Don't have a fan fact. I mean, you should go first.
You do not, that was a joke. You do not have to answer that.
I played the flute in an orchestra and then cried really loudly during the Broadway version of The Lion King. Next to my crush, it was the most humiliating experience of my life.
Why would you bring that energy? Anyway, I don't obviously we can talk about this afterwards, but
I need to talk about it with someone afterwards.
Don't cry about that. Please don't cry in the middle of this recording, please. Have you cried at any inappropriate times and places?
I was just going to say my favorite color is purple.
Sure.
My favorite color is also purple.
Purple's a very... Yay! We love that. Okay, so... That aside, not to diminish your trauma, Anna.
The actual feral energy already.
But, okay. So another piece of content that we've produced for this month is we read through some profiles of some LGBTQIA plus virologists and microbiologists from history. And we basically read their story, what they researched, and a little bit about their personal life and how their personal life sometimes intersected with the world of science. And that's another piece of content that will be available on the website somewhere. So go check that out. But what we're going to do today is this is sort of contextualized by those videos. So we're just going to discuss the people that we've already brought up and talk a wee bit more about them. So just for context of the audience, if you haven't gone and watched those videos, which is your homework to do now, is to go and watch those other videos, we discussed Alan Hart, who was a trans American physician and radiologist. We discussed Sarah Josephine Baker. Oh, and for those who aren't watching but can hear the sound of papers, we have the profiles right now. Sarah Josephine Baker, who was an American physician, who did a lot with child welfare and child hygiene, and Bruce Voller, who was an American biologist researcher in the field of AIDS, Joseph Sonnabend, who is a South African physician and scientist in the field of AIDS, and Louise Pierce, who was an American pathologist. So we, the other day, did recordings of their profiles and we had a chat about them and kind of what their stories are and what they got up to. So the first question is kind of obvious, and I think when you're discussing this is, did you know these people prior to reading these profiles aloud the other day? Or were they new to you? Some you knew, some you didn't?
Yeah, I think some I knew, some I didn't. I think I knew about Louise Pierce. And her, the group that she was in, a little bit.
Would that be heterodoxy?
Yeah, but more her living situation with the three of them together. I think I knew about that from a previous kind of celebration of LGBTQIA plus history. But I've never seen them mentioned outside of that context.
Okay. And did you know a lot about their science, or was it just...
A little bit about their science, more about their public health work, just because I find that area of science quite interesting. You know, the when we didn't know much, but we knew that maybe you should wash your hands. Like how those discoveries disseminated is really interesting personally to me. But yeah, I've not seen them really mentioned outside of celebrating queer histories, which is, I think, it's good but also interesting. Do you know what I mean? In its own way.
As in, it's sort of their complements are almost segregated to LGBTQIA History Month.
Yes.
In a way.
Yeah, exactly. We like celebrate them in February and then they kind of go. But
really, they saved a bunch of people's eyesight.
Exactly. Exactly. They're important.
Yeah.
I'm glad they are celebrated in February, but yeah. And then obviously we know a little bit about I think we all know a little bit about the discovery of AIDS and the kind of history along with that, but I don't really know many of the names. I know more of the activism than I do the science,
I think so, and I think that's probably evidenced by the fact that I'm wearing, if you're watching the video, I'm wearing a Keith Haring shirt. But no, again, I think you're right that a few of these names were new to me, and the names that I did know, you hear about them in the context of LGBTQIA plus scientists, not these are really important scientists, and they did some great work and fundamental work, because like you say, it was that time where it was, maybe wash your hands.
Please wash your hands.
We don't really know why, but maybe do it.
I think I hear queer people celebrating these scientists, but I haven't seen much discussion outside of that.
Like scientists celebrating scientists.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what about yourself, Spyros? Did you know these people?
I didn't actually know any of the names, to be honest with you. I'm also really horrible with remembering stuff, including names. But it
relatable.
It was really nice to be involved in this and kind of find out more about these people and you know, learn more about their kind of personal life too, because especially with the AIDS research, I was definitely aware of a lot of that and a lot of the work that some of these people did, like Bruce Filler. But, you know, I think it's really important to celebrate them as people as well, on top of the kind of research that they've done. You know, the only reason why we're doing researchers, LGBTQIA plus researchers is...
Do you want to repeat that one? No.
Sorry. I got that right.
Sorry.
But yeah, the only reason why we're looking at researchers is because we do research as well, and you know, if we were, I don't know, architects, we would be looking at historical, Pride Month architects. And,
Yeah, that's a good point actually.
Yeah. I wanted to say that I'd never come across a trans scientist before, so I was so excited to see trans representation in this, because I don't know, with all the current fight at the moment with trans rights and in Scotland and all of that stuff, it's so nice to see a trans person represented this far back in history.
Yes.
They've always existed.
It's almost like it's not a new thing.
Yeah, they've always existed and they've always deserved respect. So it was so nice to read about Alan Hart and understand his journey and his work.
And what was lovely, I think, about the Alan Hart story for me is that it was... Obviously, there was him and his relationship with Inez to begin with. That didn't go so smooth. But then to find out that him and Edna found happiness and he had a happy life... You know, there's that quote in it that I should find so I don't misquote him.
Yeah, it's here.
But it says, for years I'd been unhappy with all the inclinations and desires of the boy. I had to restrain myself to the more conventional ways of the other sex. I have been happier since I made this change than I ever have in my life. And I think for me personally, what was so impactful about hearing that in his own words was there is happiness for trans, trans happiness and trans joy is so incredible. To just let someone live themselves as themselves and be,
exactly.
do all that.
We're still fighting the fight, it feels. And Alan was out here doing it in the 40s.
Alan was
absolute revolutionary queen. But yeah, reading about his story really filled me with hope and joy. Yeah. So it was really, really nice to experience it.
And this is the people we should be kind of celebrating the most, just because they're not as well represented in the general population. Just don't have as many chances to meet a trans person kind of at work or in just anywhere. So it's really important to raise awareness and kind of celebrate these people, just simply because it kind of the concept of trans identity fades into the background in kind of daily life of the average person, I think.
Yeah, and it's important, again, to go back to the point that you were making in that context, is that trans people are here. They've always been here, and they've been here. They're scientists, they're your doctors, they're your train drivers, they're your fast food workers. Like, I'm just, they're here, and we should know their stories, and we should let them do what they're going to do, because they're doing great things.
Like, it was very, like, Alan Hart was a revolutionary, we know this, but he was just living his normal life. Like, he was revolutionary because he was just trying to be happy and live his life. And, he made all these amazing discoveries on the side and saved so many lives. And TB, like, it's making a huge resurgence. So in the early 20th century, he was fighting the good fight. But he was just trying to live, and he had his wife, and he was chased out of his town and stuff. And he was just trying to live a happy life. And I'm glad that he eventually found it. And success. And he was a fiction novelist. He
fully, boy was out here doing side quests. Like, he was fully like, what more can I do?
The boy had side jobs on side jobs. Good for him.
Oh my god, pioneer of hustle culture. Alan Hart. Sorry, what were you going to say?
I really want to read one of those novels now.
I really feel like we should as well, because like they talk about social issues within the medical field at the time. So I think it'd be fun to watch it, to read them. To almost like get a snapshot. For what was considered like a social issue within the medical field at that time, because they must be so different to what they are, or they're either going to be very different or so similar to what they are now. And highlight.
Scarily similar.
Which I'm like, oh god, we've not progressed.
Freaking out. But I think it's time to make a book club. Let's do it. Let's do this.
Well, thank you for sharing that. We've covered over like sort of the next part of the sort of discussion I had, which was looking at what stood out most about their stories, and why do you think that stood out to you? So I think we've talked about the Alan Hart story. The other story that I think really personally to me as a researcher stood out was Joseph Sonnabend's story, where he, long story short, he well-studied man. He ended up becoming basically the world's first AIDS doctor, essentially, and he would provide healthcare to people who were suffering from HIV/AIDS. And because he was a doctor, he wouldn't charge them if they didn't have medical aid or whatever it is. But one thing that I found as a researcher that was really interesting is he was so closely related to the subject, and the world's first AIDS doctor, all that kind of stuff. And even he thought that there was a multifactorial cause of AIDS. So he initially didn't think that it was HIV that was the causative agent of AIDS. And I think as a researcher, it changed his mind later on in his life. But as a researcher, being able to evolve your thinking and being able to move on from the ideas that you might have that you hold close to, because we've all got our favorite hypotheses. We've all got our favorite ideas that sometimes just aren't the case. And I think for me, when we talk about LGBTQIA+ in the context of research and STEM and science, that's a really fundamental thing of even these people who we look up to as icons, and great researchers, great scientists can still
I think
be wrong.
Sorry.
No. I was just trying to round out that idea, and because I think sometimes you get too attached to an idea, and it can be detrimental to you actually thinking of other things. And obviously he did great work, and I'm not saying this to be like, he got it wrong. It's more like it's incredible that he got it wrong, but was still this great person. And it shows the value of,
I think, the space to be wrong is so important, so important. And it's really easy when discussing underrepresented people in STEM that they're held to this unattainable, you had all you icon, you could never be wrong. And that's just not how science is. Everyone is wrong. Everyone has to revise their hypotheses. And I think, especially in the field that Joseph was in, the public health and the backlash that comes with that, his suggestions that safe sex would be important for preventing AIDS. being, not that he was wrong in that, but being wrong and being controversial is part of being a scientist. And I feel like there's not enough space. You know, we were talking, there's not enough space for trans joy, there's not enough space for queer joy. There's also not enough space for queer people being human. Yeah. And I really, really enjoyed reading Joseph's story and delving a little bit more into that. You know, we all knew AMFAR and stuff, but the struggle that came with it, I think, was really important part of his story. And
I think what you've just hit on there is in what you've explained more eloquently than what I was trying to do is, what's that thing of like the golden minority?
Yeah, you have to be perfect in order to represent.
The respect,
yeah, exactly.
You know, of your straight cis counterparts. And I think that was what was refreshing about his story, is that he fully was like, no, I think this, and then, you know, changed his mind. It was like, actually, that was wrong. And I think that, you know, again highlights, as you say, there's space for minority mistakes, or you know, there's queer joy, trans joy. There's also queer mess ups, and you know, queer.
Quite a few of them.
Well, some more than others.
If you go by my research, yes, quite a number. But that's what stood out to me as a researcher.
We have to refine our hypotheses. That's the entire point of science, and I'm glad that Joseph, you know, in Joseph's story, we represented that a little bit.
Yeah, because I think that's important. Anything that stood out to yourself, Spyros?
Yeah, I mean, kind of the one thing I wanted to point out is that kind of we're celebrating him because kind of this thing that, you know, everyone, like, you know, queer people are human, and any other kind of marginalized people are human. So, you know, there's always going to be mistakes, and even in science, that's like 90% of what I do is wrong hypotheses and wrong mistakes. But the other thing that he did was saving thousands and thousands of people from this disease that, you know, when he started treating people, no one really knew what it was. So I just wanted to point out that this person really contributed to saving people from a disease that kind of massively, disproportionately impacted the the queer community at the time. And the other thing that stood out was that he was promoting, like Anna said, kind of safe sex and things that are the some of the key ways to stop HIV transmission right now as well.
Yeah, he was a pioneer, and it's so, like, I know we talk about bravery a lot for the queer community, but it is brave. This disease was a death sentence, and Joseph Sonnabend was in amongst his patients and treating them, and it said that he was on call and at their deathbeds and stuff, and just the moral strength to see a disease decimate your community and keep going is something that we're lucky that we've not really had to face in that that scale.
But I think that's a lovely time to move on to our next question, which is, do either of you know any other LGBTQIA plus scientists that you'd like to tell us about?
Yeah, actually. So my supervisor, Ed, sent me an article about Ben Barres?
Ben Barres? B-A-R-R-E-S. So
really
if that's Bars or Barres, I'm not 100% too sure.
Absolute legend. I was reading through his obituary article, and I was just blown away by the strength. So he's a prominent trans scientist in the neurobiology field, prominent in America, and transitioned and talked a lot about the experience they had as a scientist pre and post transition, and the differences in how he was treated. And again, I was just struck by how he was just living his normal life. He was just trying to be happy, and it was so revolutionary for the time. I was I was just moved reading the story. So yeah, hopefully we can put links somewhere, and
hopefully,
and you can, somewhere there will be a link. I have to distribute it myself, flyers. I was just so touched by it. It was amazing.
On that note, did you read the quote that Ed picked out from the article? It's incredible. I'll quickly read it now.
Yeah.
So this is a quote from Ben Barres, I'm going to go with. from his Wikipedia. And Ben says, I lived life on my terms. I wanted to switch genders, and I did. I wanted to be a scientist, and I did. I wanted to study glia, and I did. I stood up for what I believed in, and I like to think I made an impact, or at least opened the door for the impact to occur. I have zero regrets, and I'm ready to die. I've truly had a great life. What icon. What an icon.
Legend star. I can't, to be so powerful in the field and in your personal life is just amazing. I was so happy reading this article. I was like, yes, I want to share this everywhere. So yeah, I was so happy with that.
So that's another name to add to the list. Ben Byers.
Yeah, we will link it somewhere. There will be
there'll be something.
Go and check it out. Celebrate trans scientists. Everyone.
Yes, everyone. But there'll be links or something somewhere. What about yourself, Spyros? Anyone comes to mind?
I'm definitely unprepared.
This isn't meant to be a test. Don't worry. It's just
for sure. Yeah. And I mean, that's definitely. I think I'd like to think that. Well, it might just be me, but I'd like to think that most, even queer people are not. Even queer people working on scientific research are not aware of a lot of scientists. So this is really an eye-opening experience, kind of learning about all these people and really interesting discussing everything about them.
No, and I'll put my hand up and say that the only other queer scientist that comes to my mind at the top of my head is Alan Turing, which. He's just a very famous British scientist in general because of his role in World War II. And
I knew that one.
The other thing I wanted to say though that in history, queer people were told to live quietly. They were told to keep it to themselves. And when we read the profiles, like Sarah and Louise, they destroyed their documents before their death because they were just told to keep it to themselves. And I think I'm hoping that there's a shift now where instead of being silent because you have to, people are being not. If people aren't open, it's because they're normal. They're just living their life and they don't feel the need to express their queerness open. Does that make sense? It's so normal.
But I guess what you're trying to say is there's sort of the reactionary thing of what happens when you just come out and you just want to be the queerest version of yourself ever because you've spent so long in the closet, and then you're just right, I'm gonna Vogue in the living room and put RuPaul on as loud as I possibly can, and and then eventually that sort of balances out slightly with what your baseline personality actually is.
That's what I mean. People aren't maybe, I don't know, but people maybe aren't shouting about it on Twitter as much as they used to because them and their husband or them and their wife or them and their partner, whatever, that it's not that different from everyone else. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no,
I don't know. I don't know whether I'm expressing myself in any way, shape, or form.
No, I do understand. It's kind of, it's not assimilation, but it's almost become assimilated in a way where you don't have to express it as explicitly.
Yeah, exactly.
As what it might have done.
Exactly,
10, 20
and I'm
years
not
ago.
saying that we don't need Pride and we don't need these history months. Of course we do, and we've all learnt from this process. But yeah, I think the shift from oppression to celebration has been so important, and I've really enjoyed this process because of that.
And is it so queer culture always existed? And if you dig deep into history,
that's right.
You'll probably find examples of queer culture and queer communities throughout probably human history.
100%.
And it's
because we've always been here.
And we will always be here.
Sorry, carry on.
I was gonna say that it's more about including this queer culture and things that the queer community is part of into just the overall human culture
human experience
of each time. And I think that's what happens now, and that's my understanding of what you were saying, Anna, regarding less. It essentially feels less extraordinary because
100%.
It's a similar, because queer people are open about it, and it it just becomes normal.
Yeah, it becomes normal.
Like you said,
controversial words.
No. Yeah. We are normal. I mean,
this is the new normal they warned you about.
You're not convincing enough.
No, like queer people, you're bus drivers, you're fast food. Yeah, like we've always been here, we will always be here, but now we can be much more open about it. And I'm hoping that, the 5 people that we talked about and the other queer people that were queer and wanted to be proud of it back when they absolutely could not be for fear of actual violence. I mean, not that violence isn't.
I know what you mean. Like more normalized violence.
Yeah. Like when it was so dangerous.
Yeah.
I'm hoping that they're looking down on us now and they're like, "Whoa, go Queen!" And they're like, "Yeah, you live your life." Like,
you'd hope so.
I hope they're proud of how far we've come, and that's how I felt reading these. Well,
that
stories.
Actually leads on interestingly into our next question.
Are you peeking into the questions, Anne?
I'm not teasing.
You should do this more often. You're very good at it.
Thank you.
So literally, the next question is, why, in your opinion, should we still be discussing these people and their stories, and what can they sort of say to us today? So I think that very much carries on from what you were saying, in that you do hope that the next generation has it a bit easier, and you can always look down on the next generation and say, "Go Queen, you are doing your thing." And part of the work that people before us have done have enabled us to be out in research and be celebratory in research and have pride in research. Like LGBTQIA plus STEM Day wouldn't exist without these queer folk in STEM who have come before us. So why do you think we should still be discussing these people and their lives?
I think that it's interesting because they're extraordinary people, but they lived extraordinarily hard. They did extraordinary things in their science and their research, but they also had to grapple with this kind of like oppression and coming to terms with their own identities. So it's amazing to put their work in context of their personal life. I think that's really important, like understanding that, Sarah Josephine Baker did all the amazing work that she did is because she was living with women and she was living in her relationship and she was living her authentic self, and I that's all part of her story. So erasing one half of it doesn't make any sense. So about understanding that and understanding where we come from, and like you said, like the celebrations that led to where we are now, where we can celebrate Queer History Month and Vogue in the labs and where
in the office space
and in the office space
not the culture
or wear like rainbow lanyards, like can you
100%.
imagine? Just
something as simple as that is actually
and putting it back into context and like these things that we take absolutely for granted, and back then these were the people that did the hardest work, and we've still got work to do.
We do.
I was gonna mention, at the start I mentioned that I'd be interested in reading Alan Hart's little novels, and we said, there might be kind of the social experiences of 100 years ago now, would be very different or very similar. Yeah. And I thought about it for the past 20 minutes that we've been chatting, and they're probably very similar to what people experience now. So I think that's part of essentially seeing the personal experience of kind of queer people in science from years ago, and really kind of validates the personal experiences of people now. And I think that's one of the most important reasons why we're reading all these things right now and doing this podcast and all that, to let people validate themselves through the 100%. Stories of these scientists.
No, that's a really good point. That we do have a somewhat shared experience with these people. Like being queer instantly gets you access to a club that only other queer people have access to, and that's a lived-in experience that straight cis people just don't have. So it is really interesting, as you say, to read these stories and be like, well, that's relatable to me. Yeah. It's relatable to me that they were, this LGBTQIA person who was going about doing their great work, but also doing it whilst having a lifestyle that's comparable to mine, or being in a relationship that's comparable to mine, and they made it work, and I can make it work too. Yeah. And it is, inspirational in a way that, reading about another scientist who happens to be heterosexual or cis or wherever it might be may not have the same impact.
Right, and that's the thing, that a lot of LGBTQIA plus people do not see those experiences in their say family environment or working environment, and that's why, because there's less cases of these people in your social environment. That's
cases is such an interesting word you've chosen.
Is that why
there's less cases of LGBTQIA plus people?
No, like case studies.
Yes.
Yeah. Case
no,
I think he meant there's less just queer people in your local environment.
Trying to make long sentences.
The concentration of queer people in this local environment is really low.
Not in the CVR, we're everywhere.
I need to write a bunch of paper discussions after this. Prepping myself. But yeah, it's the contact with other queer people is less frequent than with say straight people. That's what I meant. And that's why sometimes and these experiences might also be less kind of well communicated, because it can still be taboo to talk about those experiences. And reading the stories of these people kind of tells queer people today that these things were happening 100 years ago.
It links us to our history, and I think that's just really, really, really important, and reminds us of where those kind of grassroots.
Yeah,
either one.
Either which one.
Grassroots.
Pick your favorite. Pick your favorite. We're doing great here. It is currently 5:30 on a Thursday afternoon, and we are thriving.
We're thriving. No, grassroots. Organizations came from, like AMFAR and stuff, and linking science and people's professional career in STEM to activism. I think you can't have one without the other, and this is activism from the science side, and something like AMFAR is activism. No, science from the activism side.
Yes.
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 So yeah, I loved reading about these stories, and I think it's so important.
Great. No, and it's so important. It really is so important. But one thing, and this isn't really a comment sheet. This isn't really on my question sheet, but it's a comment that I wanted to make. That is, these people are obviously exceptional scientists, and they've done exceptional work. But shout out to every other LGBTQIA person who was out here living a normal life, and they were just doing what they were doing Monday through Friday, and then having the weekend off to chill out and do whatever.
I wanted to talk about this. Like, these are exceptional people.
Yeah.
They're exceptional for more than one reason. But normal, queer joy, queer stories is so important as well. And that's why I think it's amazing now that people feel a lot more confident coming out at work.
Yes.
And being open about their sexuality just in normal life. Just like, hi, you're working with a big old queer. It's not like a big thing. It's just like, hey, I'm going, like, do you want to come to dinner with me and my wife? And it's just normal. It's just normal. And it's so good. It's so amazing.
But I just wanted to take a minute to shout them all out. Shout out the mediocre LGBTQIA plus people like me.
And these people were exceptional, but you see from their stories that their lives were normal. They were facing real queer kind of daily problems. That
They were also in gay panic. The gay panic.
Aren't the gay
panic? The gays have always been here. The gay panic has been here long before us, and will be here long after us.
It's like the entropy of the universe.
It really is. Oh my god, what if that is what entropy is? Oh my god,
the universe is held together by gay panic.
The universe is astrophysicist.
I do biophysics sometimes, right? I've heard the word entropy in a paper at least twice. Okay, well, so that sort of weirdly it does sort of bring us into the next section, because we're going more general now. So not just these scientists that we've discussed, not just whatever their stories, but why to you guys is LGBTQIA plus History Month in general important? And I think that does relate back to what we were just talking about like, it's important to reflect on the lives that people have had that have made our lives easier, in terms of people who were doing the, putting up the good fight, and activists and all the rest of it. I also think that the people that have come before us who were open, who were out, were changing the minds of the people around them simply by being themselves, and that is commendable. They might not have been on the picket line, they might not have had the, been taking it to legal reforms and doing great science and whatever, but just by being someone's friend, they might have changed one person's mind down the pub and whatever.
Definitely.
So that to me personally is why LGBTQIA plus month is important, that we do look back on these stories, and we are sort of we go there for inspiration, we go there with gratitude, we look at these people's lives for relatability and say, well, that's similar to me and they've done it, so I can do it. And that's kind of my spiel on the whole thing, but what do you guys think?
I have a very kind of, I don't want to take over and make it about me, but I have a kind of...
No, make it about you. It's fine.
It about me, okay. I have a very, kind of personal story, I guess. So, the recognising the pioneers that came before us means that I was comfortable being out at work. And recently I was at an trans rights rally in Glasgow, and I got kind of it wasn't that dramatic, but I was semi-doxed, right, by a TERF. And I felt like they had no power. I'm out at work, I'm out with my family, I'm out with my friends. Like, who are you going to tell? Who are you going to tell that's going to wreck my life? Like, I'm not going to be fired for being gay, so it's fine. Does that make sense?
That 100 makes sense, but also off mic, let's have a discussion about that.
It's fine. It's fine. They can't do anything. It's fine.
Okay.
But I just being out at work means that you can be open with your friends and your family and everything. It takes all the power away from people that would ruin your life for this. And it's just magical to live in a world where that's not a worry for me. I'm fine. I'll be fine, and I'll continue to be fine. And if the world feels a lot safer for that. So I thank the pioneers that came before us that suffered. God bless them. God bless their hearts, because I can be safe, and me and my friends can be safe.
It's not.
Sorry.
And how would you like to follow that up, Spyros?
I took the mood down significantly, but yeah.
No. I want to make it very clear that is incredible, and that is amazing that you feel safer for that, and it's not to say that you've taken the mood down, because you absolutely haven't. That is I nearly swore there. That is an incredible story. It's just hard to follow that up.
No, it's fine.
So
I was like,
Spyros has the hard job to do
tell
that.
my boss, tell the institute, whatever. What are they going to do? Like, nothing. Nothing's going to happen. Congrats.
Send you an email saying, "Hi, gay. Would you like to do a podcast?"
Exactly.
What I did.
Exactly. If people know I'm gay, they're just going to volunteer me for things.
Yeah.
And that's why we're doing this now.
God forbid. Yeah, exactly. It's fine.
For you, Spyros,
as
a member, what does it mean to you?
Yeah, and I think what Anna mentioned is really important. I don't have any personal stories to share, but
okay, sure.
But it's Pride Month is both Pride History Month is both important for kind of self-awareness and self-validation of people, but also like actual safety. Because just like Anna just said, physical safety, job security, everything. Essentially, every person having equal rights. That's quite a cliche comment, right?
Yeah, but it's cliche for a reason.
Yeah, exactly. And I think even just having an LGBTQIA plus flag raised at the main campus of the university, that just...
Thank you.
Thank you, Central Uni. That just, it lifts up my mood, because it makes me feel valid in the university community.
Yeah, 100%. And you breathe a sigh of relief, because see when it's open and it's out there and the flag's being flown and there's rainbows everywhere and you're having a great time, you just know that, oh, that part of my guard can go down. Like, because I don't know about you, but I'm very proud. I don't think I could hide the fact that I'm gay if I tried. But you do walk around slightly guarded until you see like a rainbow flag, or until you see something, because you're like, it's less and less as I've gotten older, but there is still some people out there who, you know, can be uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And you're just like, ooh.
There's still street harassment, and like even in Glasgow, like even, 2023, you know, the people live in fear still, but because it's getting more and more normalized. Yeah. I have hope. I have so much hope, and reading these stories gave me hope, and that's the most powerful thing that it can give us, I think. Oh,
10,000,000%.
Yeah, it's so nice, and reading, as I said, I keep saying, but Alan really hit me.
Alan's really out here doing his side quests and just making everyone happy.
Filling me with trans joy. I was just like, yes, you do it.
What an absolute icon.
Icon legend.
We do need to, we will be back here in a week to update you on one of Alan's books. That is a promise I'm making to camera.
We have cameras now, so we'll do an audiobook reading.
Oh my god.
Oh my god.
We'll discuss
you
this
don't need a
offline.
camera for an audiobook.
What did I say? Camera?
Yeah,
I
you
meant
totally
microphone.
did.
Oh no. Okay.
I fully went along with that as well.
I am technologically inept, but we will.
I am inept.
Shout out to the normal queer folks,
Shout
guys.
out to the mediocre LGBTQIA plus community. Me, my community.
We have 3 brain cells and we're thriving.
And 3 microphones.
And we're here to tell you about it. Okay. This has been, I think, a conversation full of LGBTQIA plus joy, and it's been great, and it's been wonderful, and I think we've said some insightful stuff. Maybe, hopefully, you be the judge of that, I guess.
And some dog stuff.
And some definitely not insightful stuff.
Stephen got us to talk about this, so
yeah.
So this is just a little bit of fun.
Woo.
It's not anything serious. But lastly, we've spent all day talking about these pioneers from history and what they've been remembered for, and all that great stuff. So if you could be remembered for one thing, what would it be and why? Now I'm going to give you a little bit of time to think while I tell you mine. Mine would be my jazzy shirt collection. Now, I am wearing my Keith Haring shirt today. However, if you watch the other video, you'll see that I'm wearing a jazzy floral shirt that I got from, I believe it was St. Thomas in the Caribbean. And I have a large collection of jazzy shirts. In fact, the second TikTok ever made, which absolutely banged with over 1,000 views,
this is not self-promotion era.
Well, I'm not telling them where to find it. You have to search for that yourself.
Can I self-promote after this?
You absolutely can. I don't want people to see the 2 chaotic TikToks I have. So I would say my jazzy shirts, because I think they're fun. I think they are jazzy. And I think they suit me, and I think they do well for my body, and they make me look good, and they make me look cool, and they are a front for a personality that I'm clearly not lacking.
So I have a very jazzy jeans collection. However, they never get shown on camera. You'll just have to experience them in person.
Are you wearing them now?
I'm wearing a pair of... They're
Don't
not
stand up.
No, but they're not. I need the full collection. It's fine. That's not my thing. So I can't death drop. But when I learn, it's going to be spectacular. So that's what I want to be learned.
You want to be remembered for a skill that you do not have yet.
I don't have it yet, but
okay.
it will be amazing once I manage to work out how to do it without breaking my neck.
Right. So next week we're going to come back to you with an audiobook but visual recording of Alan Hart's one of his novels. I'll be wearing more of my jazzy shirts. I'll bring the collection, you bring your jeans, and then Anna's going to death drop. Spyros, what are you bringing to next week's recording?
The best sequel.
I used to be able to do a death drop. You haven't seen me when I was
yes, I have.
21 entering this building.
It was beautiful.
I am not 21 anymore.
Do you remember when you bought your heels? And then
Mama.
You bought your thigh highs.
That
Death
didn't happen
drop.
at work, though. You probably imagined this. You've definitely imagined
It was at the
this.
Phoenix Bar. I remember.
Okay, everyone, log in next week because we're going to have Alan Hart stories. I'm going to be wearing my jazzy shirts. Anna's going to have her jeans and attempt a death drop, and Spyros is going to come in drag and do a death drop, I think is what we've...
You can find links to everything on Stephen's Tumblr.
mentioning my Tumblr.
It's my favourite thing. I absolutely love the fact that you have a Tumblr, you troll.
Anyway, what would you like to be remembered for? We didn't actually get an answer out of you. We just
I don't have anything fun to say. Well, I'll just say maybe making like people happy and fluffy and yeah, and yeah, I'm having a great time with this podcast.
Well, on that note, I think we'll wrap that up for today because that is too saccharine to continue. Yeah, we're gonna go cry. I'm gonna make because that was so sweet.
Like happy cry.
Like happy tears.
I was gonna say we're not crying today.
No. Just happy tears over how happy Spyros makes everyone. And then you're gonna death drop, and I probably should actually go get my experiments done.
Not my imminent death. Not my imminent. Yeah. My spine cracks. You never see me again.
Yeah, if Anna's not appearing on next week's sequel, you know why.
I died doing what I loved.
So
you will be remembered for it.
It will be iconic. It
will be. So just to wrap up, I want to say thank you very much to everyone who listened, who watched, who engaged with this content in any way, shape or form. Thank you so much. And I would also like to say thank you to my two lovely guests here today. We have, again, in alphabetical order, Anna Sims and Spyros Lytras. And you can be found at, what's your Twitter?
Oh, Anna Sims Biol. Biol.
Perfect. And your Twitter?
At Spyros Lytras.
Perfect. My name is Stephen Devlin, and I can't remember what my Twitter handle is, so someone put that in editing. I don't use Twitter. Don't follow me on it. It's pointless.
Follow me on Tumblr.
Follow me on Tumblr. I'm very much more active on there. No, that's been perfect. Thank you so much, guys. We're off to go do other things, and maybe you'll catch us next week. So thanks for watching, everyone. Catch you later. Bye.